Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à tous sur ma chaîne de YouTube. Je suis l'amateur où on est ici pour parler de la vie, des loisirs, de la politique, des idéologies et tous les trucs comme ça. Et aujourd'hui, on va parler de la représentation. Excuse-moi. Yeah, I took a little French back in the day. That's the best I got. Anyway, so on today's episode, we're going to be talking about representation or lack thereof. And just to start, I will go off and play this video.
If you're white, I dare you to tell me and everyone watching this that you would feel represented and heard if it were switched around. Don't tell me if it looked like this over the last several hundred years that you wouldn't be fighting for equality and representation.
Great. I think more should just run. More run for government. What is wrong with that? If more run, more playability. That's all I gotta say. No one wants to run. No one. Everybody wants to become a rap artist. Oh, what do you want to do? Football? Football? Okay, go play football. What about you? You want to be a governor? Oh, basketball. Well, shit. Does anybody? I mean, damn. Anybody. What do you want to do? What do you want? You want to play with bazookas? Okay, cool. Go do that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I know the motherfucking brand new IP. And my lingo.
Okay, cool. Let's go fuck this shit. Yeah!
If you're white, I dare you.
Okay, so keep that in your memory bank because before getting into representation, I want to start off with talking about the spiritual and the physical, the immaterial and the immaterial. Okay, so again, my belief system is that we are in a system that meshes an immaterial world or understanding versus a material world and understanding, and that those two play off one another. And so what I mean by this is like atoms, material items, material goods, like things that you can touch, that are like hard proof within this reality versus immaterial. And this is where things like morality, truth, logic, energy, because energy as far as we understand, energy is not physical. It's not made up of anything, but it's the nature. It describes the nature between two physical objects. So energy also is not physical, but we live in a world where these two things coalesce. And even in our physical bodies, like, again, if you've been watching any of my previous videos, especially when I get more into the theological side, how I understand just people in general is that we are, again, like I said, we're spirits having a human experience. And how I relate this is just in the functioning of our brains, that our neurons, that pretty much our spirits. And if you're familiar with Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways, and the philosophical thinking behind the origin of the universe, is of there being a prime mover, and that prime mover being God that initiated the universe, however you want to call it, that our spirits are the prime movers of our body. So it's the thing that's even getting our brain to start, to even push out those neurons firing to animate my voice, my hands, like everything that I do about myself. Sometimes that's overridden with reflexes. So like if you hit, like there's a nerve or a tendon that's like right beneath your patella of your knee, like if that's hit, which is still someone else initiating it, your foot will kick. So it'll cause movement on its own without your brain interacting, but that's still someone else that's initiating that movement of our bodies, if that makes any sense. So anyway, so that's the understanding that I have of this world. And I mean, that's also just, it's portrayed all throughout the Bible as far as like the spirit of God and how we're supposed to use that spirit, his spirit, or have his spirit in us guide us to bear its fruits in the world. And so keeping that understanding in mind, there's two aspects of representation then. So there's the physical aspect and there's the spiritual aspect. And from my Christian belief, again, the spiritual aspect is going to matter way more than anything physical, like always, because what you'll have is in the spiritual realm, you'll have good and you'll have evil, you'll have right and you'll have wrong. You'll have, good, evil, right, wrong. That's about it. Just and unjust. So things that are of God and things that are not of God. So you have everything that is God, and then you have everything that's not God, and everything that's not God is bad because God is good. Makes sense? Makes sense. So anyway, with the representation, what matters, and this is what I've been saying, like you'll hear this throughout all of my videos, but what will matter more is the values and the belief system. So I'm not saying that you have to be Christian or you have to, prescribe to Christianity or have Christ be your savior or anything, but it's the values of how we ought to treat each other, the things that ought to be deemed good, the things that ought to be deemed bad, that do fall within the Christian realm of belief, are the things that I look for more in people. I mean, and we see this. And so what we'll see now with these social justice warriors and these woke leftists and whatnot is that they'll be focused. When you deny God, you deny all the spiritual actualities. So you deny those important features and functions, and you start going more towards the physical. And so you'll see that with these things like representation. And so representation or diversity, as it's now being invoked, is more based on just physical features and not necessarily anything values. And according to the left, you're only diverse if you subscribe to the leftist beliefs. Because I think Larry Elder in California wasn't diverse enough for them to have as governor because he wasn't a leftist. This is something to consider. But so it's like things with the Supreme Court justice again. It's like, I don't know if she's like, the pick may be a black woman, but that doesn't necessarily mean she represents me if she doesn't represent the beliefs that I uphold. And so what I was saying earlier again is just like the spiritual, the immaterial, the values and beliefs that people uphold are going to always matter for me more than their physical, which is why when you're voting in government, whether it's the president or not, those are the things that you ought to look for when determining who's president, versus a lot of people have admitted it themselves, but even with like President Obama for his election, a lot of people selected him primarily because he was black and he was going to be the first black president of the United States.
Because I voted for President Obama because he was black. He black.
But I can tell you he didn't represent me. He didn't represent a lot of black people, actually. As far as like, there's a lot of like, the only thing that they shared kind of was their skin color, and that was about it.
But Barack Obama is a joke. Barack Obama didn't do a darn thing for black folk. As a matter of fact, he hurt black folk in two ways. First of all, he had 8 years to do something for black folk, but he carefully and judiciously judiciously avoided doing anything for black folk. And most of my white friends told me in politics, and I was always with president governors, they say, hell, we would never have voted for Obama if we known he's going to do something for black folk. We knew he would never do anything for black folk.
So we talk about our representatives, especially in Congress and in our judicial areas or in their civil duties. It's like the spiritual needs to hold more weight, the values, the beliefs, the character, things that aren't tangible but are observed. Really important to understand that they're not tangible, they're observed, they manifest in the physical realm, that those matter more than what a person looks like, their skin color or whatnot. And so that's why when you place your votes in and you have all these people on a ballot, that person represents you. And I think Republicans, because I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, I'm just a Christian, so that's all I can say as far as my political beliefs, though Republicans do tend to be more Christian based in their values, not all the time. But so with Republicans, what I will say is that they need to do a better job of ensuring, it's like when they go out to do their rallies, that they're a person of the people, not all the people, not just certain people, because that's what helps promote that confidence and trust in them. And like Democrats do have a better way of trying to relate or getting to relate personally with other people. And Republicans kind of they forget the love part of the truth and love. Those two things are truth, like the physical. I don't know. Truth isn't really physical, but truth and love is the things that are concrete in reality, but said in such a way that it's emotions based almost. That it brings that love in. But anyway, so along those lines, it's like that sort of representation is important. And then, excuse me, when you're talking about like movies in Hollywood, I think we kind of forget that what it means to be a minority. I don't think I don't know if we forget, but it's just like I feel like it doesn't resonate the way that it ought to, like what it actually means to be a minority. And like you'll hear the statistic, I think almost everyone in the States knows that 13% is the Black population in the United States. Like it just seems to be stuck there. I don't know. But 13% is the Black population. If we're just gonna round that down, 1 out of every 10 people will be a Black person. That's not a lot of people. So if you're in a group of 10, like for me, I can expect for myself to be the only Black person. And if there's more than one, it's kind of shocking because that means there's over-representation, you know what I mean? So it's like we I don't know, with things like this, it's like, I don't think the people who espouse representation know what they mean by that. And so going back to the original video of the TikTok, I don't know if it was TikTok or just a regular video. Either way, but what he was saying was about the different desires that tend to attract more Black people or people of color rather than, the bureaucratic government positions where people demand that representation or demand that more people of said physical characteristics just be put in those spots for the sake of having them in that spot and being another face to the sea. But it's just like, one, he's right as far as with, I mean, this is a debate. I think one old head came on to Charlemagne's channel and talking about how even like in the realm of entertainment, as it comes with sports or acting and movie, like that's what tends to attract more Black people in general, especially with athletics. And he was just saying, like, I'll see if I can't show the video.
You all don't know about it, called the Council of 300. What they want to do now is say, we got too many people on the earth, and we're going to start losing resources. There won't be enough resources left. We got water, we're going to have water shortages coming. And when water shortages come, what follows that is food shortages. Right now, 20% of the world is suffering from water shortages. We're going to start having water shortages in this country. We have water shortages and have food shortages. So what the council and all these government, all these rich people on the earth are saying is that we got to start getting rid of some of these people. We're going to start with the non-producers. Now, who are the non-producers in America? The only people in America that produces absolutely nothing except sweat is Black folk.
That's real, though. I get what you're saying. I feel you.
No, you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, right now, all of our people that are supposed to be successful, guess what? The only thing they produce is sweat. They're running with balls, football, basketball, baseball, tennis ball, golf ball, singing and dancing, producing sweat. Nobody's buying any damn sweat. And how are you going to feed yourself? Right. We don't produce anything. We don't have an industry.
But yeah, he was just essentially saying it's like a lot of Black people tend to want to, whether he says sweat for this country or they pay for the country in their sweat. It's always been the sweat. It's never with the mind or critical thought, which is something to think about as far as with how those two things play off. Because on the one hand, government positions do get paid a lot. I don't think they should as much as they do, and I made a video on that. But it's understanding where people's desires are and what people have a passion for, and how those things are being determined. But it's just like, you can't, like, just face value is like, you can't say whether something is or is not an accurate representation of the population. Okay, so I had to edit this part because I was throwing out some BS numbers and I didn't want to be misleading. But the point here was just to say that with representation, like, all we can say is that the representation is accurate of the current desires, and that people are going to do what people are going to do. And so we can't necessarily force the desires of others. We can encourage, we can influence, we can persuade, but people do what people are going to do. So everything that's present is an accurate representation of those minds. We're called a minority for a reason. I mean, because we're a minority, we're not the majority. And so that's kind of where the overrepresentation or underrepresentation or just any representation in general is kind of, I don't think it's fruitful. Because again, I think race in and of itself is, again, like a category error. It's not anything that determines anything. It doesn't. It'd be like saying the number 2 smells like the color green, and it's just like, it doesn't make sense. It's not computing, because those things weren't meant to compute. So you have those two different aspects. So you have the aspects of the government and civil duties, where the spiritual values, the beliefs, the character needs to be what is represented, and not the actual people themselves. Because it's like I'll have to make another video on this, but it's just like they're not there to represent what people look like. They're there to represent what people believe in. Keep that in mind. But then when you have the entertainment industry, where it is about all people, I think that representation such as that needs to be realistic. So but again, it's like understanding that, again, like 1 out of every 10 people is expected roughly to be a black person. So it's just so you'll have all these tropes about the token black guy in a movie, just so they can say that the black kid was there.
Sure, why not? I am the token black guy. I'm just supposed to smile, stay out of the conversation, and say things like, damn, shit, and that is whack.
What are you doing here? What do you mean?
Well, I'm supposed to be the only black guy at this party.
Oh. Shit.
Yeah, I know. It's whack.
Hey, man, my bad, man. No doubt. Why don't you take this, man?
Thanks.
All right? Do your thing.
Hey.
Yep. Peace out, brother.
Hey, honest mistake.
You just swear about it.
Right?
And I don't know. I think it's just like, I don't know. I think it's just understanding, again, what the nature of representation. Because again, like I think it's also important to know that we have representation, but you have to also understand the difference between good representation, that's the actual representation that it needs to be. Because again, I'm under the belief that I only represent myself. Other black people don't represent me necessarily, unless they're, again, Christian in mindset, and that's where their beliefs. Because like, if you're going to be a Christian, you need to represent Christ. All right, so I just think that's a big misunderstanding amongst a lot of people in the country that definitely needs more nuance. Like, I think if we're talking, again, government level, the spiritual matters more. If we're talking about industry, I don't think it's good to ignore that black people or other people in minority exist, because like that would just be dumb. Like, we all have eyes we can see around us, but it's also just the different environments, and also that representation. A lot of black people have been represented in the news, not in a good light. So it's just some things to keep in mind. But I think, I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. Kind of rambling a little bit. But I'm just an amateur, so don't come for me. Anyway, let me know what you think. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.